All right, welcome back, everyone. Keith McMahon joins us now to take a look at sports. Keith, of course, a big night for the Jets tonight, but we have what is potentially even a bigger story, and it deals with boxing.
Yeah, professional boxing in Manitoba and the way it's run. Good evening, everyone. During last February's pro card at the Winnipeg Convention Center, a boxer agreed to wear one of our microphones simply to get a better and closer feel for the sport. But what it revealed was far more than we ever imagined. And in a three-part series, Mike Beauregard investigates not so much the individual fighters, but the way provincial bodies supposedly govern them.
Professional boxing in this province is regulated by the Manitoba Boxing and Wrestling Commission, a government-appointed commission. Their duty is to enforce the rules contained in this Boxing Act. The regulations are quite clear and very stringent, especially those pertaining to the boxer. But is the commission enforcing these rules? On hand for February's fight card, we found promoter Ron Thomas in a bind. You see, Thomas was short a boxer just prior to fight time. Acting as an intermediary, boxer Terry Jesmer went recruiting.
We'll see, I'll go feel him out here and see. So what do you say, Larry, yeah?
I don't think so.
Why not?
Why don't you go? I'll get hurt. This guy will fight. He's a good fighter.
How's it going, man?
All right, how you doing?
All right.
Hey, you know what? Would you be interested in fighting? No? So what do you say? $300, man.
I know it's the box, but I'm not ready. You gotta give you a week's notice.
No, this is better this way. Well, it is. Because then it's like a surprise. So it's not like you have to worry last night. For some guys, when they know they're going to fight, the next night they get no sleep and all this shit, you know. This way it's better. It's like 20 minutes before the fight, and yeah, you're going to fight, right? Yeah, how's that feel?
The sales job complete, Larry Morissette was about to make his professional boxing debut. Within an hour of being solicited, this man of limited experience was exchanging blows in front of a convention center audience. Morissette claims to have undergone a physical prior to the bout, the same mandatory medical administered to all boxers on the day of a fight card. But according to the regulations, to qualify for a license in this province, one must undergo more than just a last-minute physical. Section 7 of the Manitoba Boxing and Wrestling Commission Act states that every boxer shall, before taking part in a pro bout, obtain a license from the commission, and shall, as part of the process, provide the commission with a medical certificate showing that the boxer has, within the preceding year, undergone a general examination. That examination must include a stress electrocardiogram, which monitors the heart, an EEG, which records brainwave activity, and an examination by a qualified neurologist or neurosurgeon. Does that medical you require to obtain a license include things like an EEG and
Yes.
a stress electrocardiogram?
That's right.
So they have to prove to you that they've undergone these tests before you even consider handing over a license?
That's right.
Do you have a boxing license?
Do I have a boxing license? Yeah, I guess I do.
Were you required by the commission at all to present proof of having undergone any required tests necessary to obtain a license?
No, I wasn't.
Larry Morissette was asked to box for one reason, so that the promoter could meet the commission's required minimum of 30 rounds of boxing. In order to meet this requirement, commission officials on hand that evening ignored the rules designed to protect boxers like Larry. How in the world could Larry Morissette have fought on your card in February?
How could Larry Morissette, based on the people who trained him,
Buck hasn't fought in years. Does he have a license?
Larry Morissette was given a license that evening to perform as a fill-in that card. Otherwise, there would have been no boxing card. Our rules are as such.
Could you not have bent the rules, though, in this case? Say, permit the promoter to run a 26-round card instead of risking a guy's life? This guy hasn't boxed in years, Buck.
That's right. It's a risk we took, and I say that.
Do you think you can afford to take those risks?
Not anymore.
Unfortunately, Larry is not alone. That story tomorrow as our Pulse Probe continues.
Meanwhile, the Jets will try to avoid becoming part of Stanley Cup.
Pro boxing here in Manitoba, and it continues tonight.
Yeah, we're going to focus today as whether this was a regular occurrence or not. Good evening, everyone. Yesterday, as mentioned, we introduced a conversation videotaped at the Winnipeg Convention Center back in February that showed how professional boxing cards in this province can be put together at the last minute with little regard for safety standards. In the second of his three-part series, Mike Beauregard found that the case of Larry Morissette is not an isolated one.
To box professionally, one requires a license. Professional licenses in this province are obtained from the Manitoba Boxing and Wrestling Commission. Prior to granting a license, it is the Commission's duty to ensure that the applicant meets specific medical requirements. According to the Manitoba Boxing and Wrestling Commission Act, the boxer, in obtaining a license, must provide the Commission with a medical certificate showing that the boxer has, within the preceding year, undergone a general examination. That exam must include a stress electrocardiogram, also referred to as an ECG, an EEG, and an examination by a qualified neurologist or neurosurgeon. Commission Chairman Buck Matiowski.
Our prime concern has to be the safety of the boxer.
Unfortunately, the Commission isn't practicing what it preaches. How did you obtain your boxing license?
The license was just given to me.
It was given to you?
Just given to me.
No fee?
There was no fee. There was nothing.
Did you not have to prove that you had undergone the required tests?
No.
Skripal did undergo a mandatory physical on the day of his last bout, but is a medical performed on the day of a fight card a sufficient means of determining whether a boxer is fit to fight? Dr. Wayne Hildahl explains the significance of an EEG.
It's a sensitive test, as I say. It can pick up abnormalities that cannot be picked up on the physical examination. So in a boxer, it can be a very significant test because we don't want a boxer to go into the ring when he's had some brain damage.
Without the benefit of an amateur career, Sonny Pabwaya made his professional boxing debut in February. Sonny, when you obtained your boxing license, were you required by the Commission to undergo any sort of medical testing at all?
No.
An EEG, a stress electrocardiogram?
No.
Did you undergo those tests?
No, I didn't.
Did you require any proof, though, of Sonny having undergone any tests? Any of the required tests?
We asked for documentation on Sonny and the ECG. In fact, we still have a letter to say that before he fights, or if it's because of the time element, he will have to produce to us an ECG, an EEG, those two in particular.
He didn't undergo those tests,
No,
nor was he asked to provide them?
No, he just attended, those two documents were required. They weren't ready. We permitted Bud Simmons to put them on the card, but he must attend the weigh-in and the medical at the card, that date, which he did. And in the opinion of Dr. Barry McMillan, he passed the examination.
But you yourself have said in the past, Buck, that an examination performed the night of the fight isn't enough. You require...
When there's doubt. When there's doubt...
It's right there in the rules, Buck. Those rules are consistent across the country. To obtain a license, you must undergo the required tests and then undergo another physical the night of the fight. It's pretty simple.
Yes.
You have to prevent injury. You have to do something to protect the boxer. You yourself said that was your primary concern, the safety of the boxer.
Okay, in this case of, I said, Sonny Pabwaya, and of course, Carl Skripal, and of course, Larry Morissette. I mean, it was a fiasco. I admit that. It'll never, as I say, it'll never happen again. We bend to rules.
So it's our responsibility as physicians and the boxing commissions to make sure that they're boxing safely. We can't leave that decision up to the boxers or to the promoters. That's totally unrealistic.
Apparently, that decision can no longer be left to the Commission either. Tomorrow, reaction from the Minister of Sport and other MLAs as our Pulse Probe continues.
Good evening, everyone. The Manitoba legislature buzzing today over our investigative series into professional boxing in this province. Mike Beauregard screened the first two parts for all three political parties today, and it evoked some interesting reactions.
The Manitoba Boxing Commission has been negligent. This government-appointed commission has quite simply failed to enforce its own rules. Yesterday's installment focused on the appalling leniency with which the commission grants boxing licenses. We learned Monday just how far the commission is willing to go in bending its rules, allowing Larry Morissette, a spectator, to compete as a last-minute replacement. The commission's incompetence has prompted criticism and outrage.
I certainly hope that the minister responsible for sport, Mr. Ernst, will, through his own initiative, attempt to ensure that the scandal that is developed here is corrected immediately. However, Mike, I intend to place direct pressure on the minister to lobby him, to speak to him, and to place whatever pressure on him is necessary to ensure that he secures the dismissal or resignation of the chairman of the Boxing Commission.
The minister responsible met with commission members this morning.
The question that was raised, the fact that all of the rules were not followed with regard to the medicals that were required, is clearly in error and clearly in violation of the rules, and I have given them instructions that it will not happen again.
What do you plan to do to ensure that it doesn't happen again?
Well, it will be monitored.
Do you really think you can afford to retain those responsible?
Yes, I do. I have faith in the people who are involved. They have many years of experience in the sporting community of Manitoba. They've demonstrated over and over and over again their commitment.
Can't imagine that they're taking it so lightly that, well, we've had a talk and we can assure you that this won't happen again. Why did it happen in the first place? I think we need to know that and then know what specific steps they're taking, not just that they've had a little talk, but what specific steps they're taking to make sure it doesn't happen again.
All this week on 24 Hours, we've updated previous I-Team investigations to show you what's happened since. And tonight we revisit Manitoba's boxing community. Here's Danielle Kiefler now with tonight's report.
Thanks, Diana. Well, because boxing is such a dangerous sport, there are regulations in place that help to protect the athletes. In 1995, the I-Team found Manitoba boxers were stepping into the ring without passing medical tests. Tonight we tell you what's been done about the problem. But first, here's what we found in our original story.
I'm only 33 years old, so I don't know what I'm going to do now.
When we first met Byron Prince in 1995, he was living on welfare, a far cry from the days when he was headliner on Winnipeg fight cards in the 80s. After too many blows in the ring, Prince was left 75% blind.
Just living. Difficult. It's hard to do everything. Cook, wash, clean.
Like other boxers, Prince was supposed to take tests every year before he stepped into the ring. Tests that monitor his brain, his heart, and an exam by a neurologist. But our investigation found the Manitoba Boxing Commission never checked whether he'd taken his medicals. It just let him keep fighting.
If we failed, it's not because we were as intentional. It was not intentional. We took the word, and we learn every time, do not take the word of a boxer.
All a boxer had to do was sign a declaration stating the tests had been done.
Now, whether it's truth or not truth, we accept it.
We decided to check with the athletes themselves during a fight in January 1995. In every case, Manitoba boxers had not taken at least one test. That means, under the Boxing Commission's own rules, none should have been allowed to fight. We took our findings to the Boxing Commissioner.
Will you take their word in the future?
No.
What will you require?
A copy of a record of an EEG and EKG. Most recent, in the current year.
Okay, so some boxers weren't taking the tests they needed to. What has the commission done since we broadcast that item to address the problem?
It's actually clamped down. The Boxing Commission tells us that ever since the story aired, they're no longer taking the boxers' word for it. They're requiring actual proof that boxers have taken and passed those medical tests. Unfortunately, this comes too late for Byron Prince. Today, Byron Prince is still on welfare, still unable to work because his vision continues to deteriorate.
Money's bad. Like, I gotta live on $300 a month. and I can't leave me to do nothing. Like, it's my daughter's birthday in a few days. I can't even buy her a birthday present. I mean, I'm going to, but I got to dig into my food money, and it's kind of hard. It hurts.
Prince's pro boxing career is over, but those who follow in his footsteps are finding rules are tougher than when he was in the ring. Since our investigation in 1995, the Boxing Commission says it's been checking boxers' medical records.
Fighters did not give us accurate information.
Manitoba's new boxing commissioner, Dr. Henry Jansen.
What kind of documented proof are you insisting on having?
That before the fight, that they would have to provide evidence that they have passed these tests to our physician.
And if the evidence is not there, what happens?
They won't fight.
On February 20th, 16 fighters entered the ring at the Winnipeg Convention Center. According to the Boxing Commission, all had to show evidence of medical exams 2 weeks before the event.
We have David Kelly from USA, Anthony Perez, he was out of Las Vegas, who happened.
Promoter John Vernas says if any boxer arrived without those exams, he made sure they were done here in Winnipeg, and he showed us the test results.
EEGs. I feel a bit better. You know, if the doctors say that they can pick up a problem from an EEG, like if there's a blood clot or you know, maybe basically an aneurysm waiting to happen, and they can pick that up and stop the person from going in the ring and getting killed, I'm all for it. I don't want to see anybody get hurt.
They should have been checking into that long ago.
The Boxing Commission's tougher stand on medical tests isn't much of a consolation to Byron Prince.
Like, I'm kind of happy for the kids that are coming up today, but myself, there's nothing I can do. Nothing I do or say won't change my eyesight.
I still want to know, though, Danielle, has this new stricter policy from the Commission actually prevented anyone from getting in the ring?
It has. Actually, there was an incident in 1996 in March where a boxer had claimed that he had taken and passed a test in Alberta before coming here to Winnipeg to fight. It turns out he hadn't. The Commission investigated. He hadn't taken the test, and that was enough to disqualify him. More recently, in the February 20th fight, there was a boxer who had gone for a general physical. That's also part of what they have to go through, usually the night before a fight. And it turned out he had a problem with peripheral vision, and that was enough to have him prohibited from fighting that night.
Interesting. Thank you for that.
We accept it.
Dr. Michael McKay is the Commission's ring doctor. McKay administers the pre-fight physical. He admits taking a boxer's word is risky.
And this is the problem we're having as far as we obviously rely a lot on what the boxer is doing, maybe the trainers as well, and obviously we've been burnt. And the trouble is that we're now letting boxers go into a match or into a fight that maybe aren't medically cleared. And of course it's going to jeopardize the boxer if something bad happens.
Tonight, Roddy Batson has his way with Del Ritchie. It's a decisive victory for Batson. For Ritchie, a 7-stitch cut. But for some boxers, the damage can be far more permanent. He was a crowd favorite, a headliner on Winnipeg fight cards in the 1980s. Like most boxers, Byron Prince dreamed of title shots and lucrative paydays.
Oh, you guys, the HCI, that was for you guys. You guys told me I was relaxed. Thanks, everybody.
Today, the former contender lives on welfare. He strains just to see highlights of his once promising career, now fading fast.
Now I'm messed up for the rest of my life. I'm only 33 years old, so I don't know what I'm going to do now.
After too many blows in the ring, Prince is now 75% blind.
You're always banging into stuff. Just living, difficult. It's hard to do everything. Cook, wash, clean. You know, it's hard to shave your face with one eye even. It just makes it difficult. When it gets difficult, it gets frustrating. You get mad, you get upset, and I got a temper.
Prince's temper won him many bouts, but his career took a standing 8 count after this fight in 1989, when his eyesight began to go.
He started in 1990 with quarter loss of vision down here in each eye.
Dr. Michael Harley is Prince's eye doctor.
And then it extended up to here, which means if somebody punched him from this side, he wouldn't see it coming, or from above. He's got a similar defect here in the left eye, so that everything to the right is blanked out. All he sees is stuff to the left.
Harley was the first to diagnose the vision loss. Neurologist Dr. Michael Newman discovered why. A CAT scan showed a 1 centimeter hole in Prince's brain.
So that little hole, although it's probably not the only hole that he has there, would account for his visual loss that I saw. And I said, it's not safe for you to box, and you'll get further injury if you do.
But Prince did box. 3 times the commission gave him a license to fight. Twice in 1990, and here in May of '92, his final bout. Just a month later, his loss of vision was 65%.
Should you have fought?
Boxing's just been in my blood for years. It's just something I've always been, it's a goal for me to become a Canadian champion at that time. It was a big goal for me. And I was stubborn. I get that from my dad, stubborn, and I just kept going, and I couldn't listen no matter how much eyesight I lost at that time. I didn't care, and I just kept fighting.
How could he have been licensed in Manitoba?
No place there are regulations say that he requires an ophthalmological examination. No place.
This guy was looked at by some very well-respected people.
Yes, he was.
A top-flight neurologist.
Yeah. We've never had this documentation, this medical record of Byron Prince.
And what about the pre-fight physicals Prince had to pass? Dr. McKay was a ring doctor for Byron's final bout. He claims that he was able to fool his way through those pre-fight examinations, and this is how he did it. Show us how you fool the doctor through this argument.
He would just put his hands up. He'd say, look at my nose, stare at my nose, watch my hands. He'd do this, like that. He'd spread his hands apart. He'd say to me, which finger is moving? And I can only see this side, so if this one wasn't moving, it's obvious this one was. So I would just tell him which one was moving. That was it.
So you fool your way into the fight?
Then I got myself to fight.
What's your reaction to that?
Well, that's obviously twofold. One, himself, for obviously trying to hide a significant medical problem, and obviously a fault maybe in the medical aspect as far as not providing off the assessing him closer. We have to get those baseline eye examinations done as well as part of the initial examination of any person and trying to get a boxing license.
Have you failed here?
If we failed, it's not because we were as intentional. It was not intentional. We took the word, and we learn every boxer.
Will you take their word in the future?
No.
What will you require?
A copy of a record of an EEG and EKG. Most recent, in the current year.
On a hill overlooking Happy Valley.
It's a quiet night at home as 7-year-old Kayla reads to her father. The roar of the crowd, long gone. But despite the damage Prince has suffered, he still yearns to step into the ring.
After you finish boxing, you know, you gotta have an education or you gotta have a job to follow on after. I got nothing. If I could scan the physical, boxing physical, if the next fight that was coming up here in Winnipeg, I'd be at it if I could. It's just in the blood.
We'd like to know what you think about tonight's I-Team report. You can reach us at 788-3771 and 1-800-563-NEWS. You have
It revealed that the Boxing Commission was blind to its own rules. Now, Manitoba's Minister for Sport says new regulations are on the way to make boxing safer. Verlyn Kubanek has more.
It's a dangerous sport, but there are rules. Every boxer must be tested once a year with an EKG or heart test, an EEG to monitor brain waves, and be examined by a neurologist or neurosurgeon. But the Boxing Commission hasn't enforced all the rules.
I've never been required by the Boxing Commission for an ECG, which is an electrocardiogram. I've never been required for that. You know, and I've never been requested to have a neurological exam either.
Yesterday, the I-Team showed that every fighter on a January boxing card was lacking a medical test required for a boxing license. Sometimes boxers lied about tests, but the Commission didn't demand proof of them. Jim Ernst is the minister responsible for the Boxing Commission.
Well, there are clearly things that the Commission didn't do that it ought to have done, and we'll deal with that.
Next week, the minister's staff will consult with boxing officials on new regulations. It will become mandatory to show proof of medical tests. The man who chairs the Boxing Commission, which also oversees professional wrestling, admits there are problems. But Buck Matiowski says he did the best he could with just 3 part-time staff. Vera Lynn Cubanek, CBC News, Winnipeg.